Is that good? Yes, we're good, aren't we? Yeah. Hooray! Sorry for the delay, everybody. Lots of technical issues. But I know you're all just here to eat your lunch anyway, so good. Welcome. My name is Dan Coleby. I work for Content and Cloud, as it says all over my T-shirt. And this session is about Windows 365, the Cloud PC. Is it right for you? That's odd, it's not changed on here. You can follow me on Twitter, LinkedIn if you want, or you can drop by our stand over here and a fresh stand over there as well if you want any information about Content and Cloud. I'm obliged to say thank you to the Platinum sponsors, of which we are one, and the rest of the sponsors, of which we're also a Gold sponsor. So, what is Windows 365? I'm guessing you probably know, or at least you're interested. As far as Microsoft say, it's a new category of cloud PC. What it actually is, and I'm not going to drain this slide because at 3 o'clock you can go and see James Graham from Microsoft doing the Level 100 presentation about Cloud PC, which will give you a bit more information about what it is. But effectively, Windows 365 is a personalized, dedicated virtual desktop that is built on top of Azure Virtual Desktop with two key differences. The first is that the provisioning is fully automated through Endpoint Manager. So you don't need to create the AVD environment. You don't need to configure all of that. You simply create a provisioning policy in Endpoint Manager and deploy the device from Endpoint Manager. And the other key difference is that it's a modern workplace SKU which is billed per device per month. So with AVD, obviously you pay for Azure consumption credits, and with Windows 365 you pay a per user or per device per month license. A few words about what it is not, because there's been quite a few rumors flying around in the community. It is not Microsoft charging you twice for Windows. What you are buying is a virtual desktop. You are paying for the compute and the storage. You're not paying for Windows twice over. That was the most common rumor that was flying around when the product was launched. It is also not the new name for Windows 11, as quite a lot of people have said. Windows 11 is available now as an image within Windows 365, but they are very different things. Windows 11, obviously the operating system, and Windows 365 is the cloud PC. And the cheeky one from me, it's not an entirely new concept, I would say. So I'm a Microsoft partner. Speaking at a Microsoft event, I won't blaspheme by naming other cloud vendors, but other cloud desktops are available and have been for many years. So I think Microsoft's being a bit cheeky by saying it's an entirely new concept, which it's not. But of course, it is most effectively delivered from the Microsoft cloud, already engaged with AAD and provision from Endpoint Manager. Just give you a little bit of context around where Windows 365 sits. So I like to talk to people about this kind of context of the modern desktop. So we're all familiar with the modern desktop, with provisioning from Autopilot and from management for Endpoint Manager. And you can use that set of cloud technologies across a whole range of virtual and physical environments. So Windows 365 really sits here as the SaaS offering alongside what is a PaaS offering of AVD, alongside what could be an on-premise or IaaS offering of Citrix or some kind of VDI, alongside what is all the physical devices that we all have. And they're all completely unified in the management through Endpoint Manager, through Autopilot, etc. And another thing that we like to talk to customers about is the importance of being proactive in the management of those devices. So traditionally, I think desktop was very much a reactive support model. You fixed it when it was broken type of thing. But for several years now, we've been a partner of Microsoft on the Microsoft Managed Desktop, which is a very slow-to-market offering, but a very capable offering around proactive management, updating of the device, management of the security, etc., and applications. And at Content and Cloud, we have our own version of that as well. So we can do a proactive managed desktop. And if the importance of this slide is just to say that Windows 365 really just slots into that whole model. It's entirely manageable just as a physical device is within that ecosystem. So the most common question I've come across from customers is, well, why would I have Windows 365 as opposed to Azure Virtual Desktop? Should I have both? Is AVD still staying around, or is Windows 365 going to take over? So the answer is AVD is definitely still around, and Microsoft intend for the two to coexist. And really, it depends on your individual use case. So you can definitely have both, and I think each solution is right for a different user persona and right for a different use case. So Windows 365, if your use case requires a dedicated personalized desktop, then I would say categorically go with Windows 365 because it's easier to set up, it's easier to manage, the total cost of ownership is less, and probably, depending upon your specification, it might actually be cheaper on a per user per month basis as well. If your requirement can be supported by a pooled desktop environment where the user just gets the session for the amount of time that they're logged on, then AVD is likely to be your solution because it's about a fifth the price if you're working on a pooled environment rather than a dedicated one. Also, AVD is the solution if you've got any kind of really specialized compute requirements, so you need high performance compute or you need a GPU optimized SKU. Although, actually, on the next slide, there are some more SKUs coming out shortly within Windows 365, so you'll see GPU-enabled SKUs coming out quite soon. And AVD is probably also the platform you should use if you want to customize that platform, if you want to get really specific about how it's integrated within your Azure environment, etc. But with the enterprise version of Windows 365, you can still put your own image on there, for example. You can still do quite a lot of customization of it, and it's all fully manageable within Endpoint Manager. Yeah, so to summarize that, dedicated desktop, standard kind of specification, and you want predictable cost, Windows 365. If you can support your user requirements with a pooled desktop, you need some kind of specialized compute, or you want to do application streaming, then AVD is your answer. But as I said, there are some new SKUs coming shortly to Windows 365, which will be GPU optimized and higher performance compute. And also, I think Microsoft haven't announced this yet, but I think if they get a bit more flexible about their pricing, so you're not paying for 24/7 resource, I think that's going to really increase the use case for Windows 365 as well. So if you look at Amazon, for example, you can buy an Amazon desktop for 20 hours per month, and it only costs £5, as opposed to buying it for 24/7 usage, and it costs £50. One consideration to make is whether you want to use the business or the enterprise version. And I would say 99% of the time you want the enterprise version. So first thing is, which I haven't written on the slide, is they are the same price. So it's not like the business version is cheaper, as is usually the case, that they're both exactly the same price. As with other business SKUs, the business version only works for up to 300 users. It has the advantage at the moment that it's AAD joined only, whereas currently the enterprise version requires you to have a hybrid AD and AAD environment, but that's going to go away. Don't have a date, but let's say by Christmas, that requirement will go away. Business is really easy to set up. You literally just apply the license and the device gets provisioned. There's no Azure setup involved, but that means that you get less configurability. The user is an admin by default. If you want it in Endpoint Manager, you've got to wrestle the thing into Endpoint Manager to control it, etc. So I think in most cases, the enterprise version is going to be what most businesses want. And I think once that hybrid AD requirement disappears, then you'll see more take-up for people who are in a cloud-only environment. So I just wanted to, given this session is about whether this is right for you or not, I was going to talk you through a few of the use cases that our customers are looking at Windows 365 for. Because I think, if you go to James's session later, he'll talk about using Windows 365 for the world of hybrid work and how people want to switch between different devices but still have access to the same persistent desktop. I think that is a use case, but I think it's more marginal than Microsoft are suggesting it would be. Probably the most obvious and common requirement is users to use a bring your own device. So we've got a customer, for example, who they've got one user who lives and works in Northern Ireland, and physically supporting that PC for them is very difficult. If they could just let them use their own PC but provide them with a cloud PC through Windows 365, that would be much simpler for them. But we've also got customers who are doing some pretty interesting stuff with Windows 365. So I'm not going to name and shame the customers, but we have a customer who, as part of their business, they fly drones and take video footage of the landscape, and then they need to process that video quite extensively afterwards. And at the moment, the surveyors do that on their laptop, and they can't work for the next 8 hours while that piece of video processes. So what we're doing for them is we're spinning up Windows 365 environment. So what they do, they take the relatively lightweight video footage off the drone, upload it to Azure storage, and then all of the compute for that video analysis happens in the cloud through a Cloud PC. And whilst the user's doing that, they're free to use their laptop for whatever else they want to do. I've just lost audio, haven't I? Yeah. They did say. The mic's gone. The mic's gone, yeah. One sec, sorry. Better? No? They did warn me this might happen, but it's... I've just lost audio. Yeah.
Again? Okay.
Shout now. Shout.
Sorry.
That seems to be universal. In addition to your mic problem, there was also a problem with our app. They're bringing a new one, but I'm really sorry. How close is the airway? All
5
mics are now
minutes.
not working.
Really?
Yeah. Turn it off and on again.
Hello? Oh, perfect. Yeah. I might get 5 minutes, but the amplifier's dead apparently. Yeah. So another very interesting use case we've got with a customer who they build medical analysis machines for blood analysis actually in hospitals, and at the moment these things, they're powered with some crappy old HP device that's screwed into the back of them. And then the analysis of that is also done on basically a desktop computer that's sitting in a hospital somewhere. So we're working with this customer to replace all of that infrastructure with Cloud PCs because they're far more manageable, they're far more secure, they're far more resilient. They can make sure they're fully patched and up to date, and they can really control that whole thing as a managed service. Whereas at the moment, servicing a couple of thousand PCs that are in hospitals is incredibly difficult for this customer. So we think shifting that workload to the cloud is a really compelling use case. And then probably quite an obvious one actually, we've got a few customers who are either acquiring other businesses or they're divesting parts of their business. And so the requirement is that effectively the user needs 2 devices. They want to sit using their existing device, but they also want to jump into the environment of the business that is being created. And so a great way to do that is to spin up a Cloud PC for that person and them to access that from the current device they've got. It manages all the security in a very segmented way. We've also got another customer, I didn't put this on the slide, who work in a highly secure environment where their users aren't allowed internet access, but certain users need internet access for the work that they're doing. So we're creating Cloud PCs for that organization whereby they can work in a very locked down sense on their actual device, but then they've got a virtual device that's sitting with internet access where they can actually research and do some work in the cloud. So just to summarize then, I'd say, is Windows 365 right for you? It is if you need a dedicated virtual device. And it is if you've got some form of flexible workforce. So maybe you've got temporary workers, maybe you've got consultants or third parties that are coming into your environment to do some work. And it's also right for you if your users themselves have got flexible compute needs. So maybe think back to that drone analysis example I had earlier. You know, somebody who's doing one thing on their device and yet they want some compute somewhere else to work on, then that's good for you. And it's probably also right for you if you've got some kind of specialist requirement, not necessarily high performance compute, but a specialist requirement that needs a cloud-based environment that you can control and manage in a different way, a bit like the blood analysis example that I gave. And that's the end of my talk. Thank you. If you can fill in the feedback form, that'd be great. If anybody's got any questions, I don't know if it's a bit hard to hear in this environment, but any questions at all? No? Okay. Thank you very much. Sorry for the technical issues.